I was muted. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Pixelists Podcast about all the nerdy things we love and enjoy. As always, we're your hosts. That's Blake. I'm Will. Today, we're here to talk about a little worlds beyond number.
I just love that we're like 2 or 3 years deep into this and we still like, I'm muted. Figuring it out.
It's just, if there's not technical difficulties, are you even really trying?
At this point, yeah, it'd be counter to our brand. We'd be undoing our brand a little bit.
100%. We can't do things too smoothly. So
that's right.
What would blow people's minds is to find out that we intentionally mess things up just so we can create that likable facade. In reality, Blake and I are perfect.
Yeah.
All the mistakes are manufactured.
Yes, that is the story we will stick to.
Yep.
How are you on this Monday, my friend?
I'm good, man. It was one of those days where I just can't shake the tired a little bit, just that.
I gotcha.
That feeling behind your eyes,
Oh yeah. As you said it, I was like, oh man, rubbing my eyes.
Yep. So it's one of those Mondays, but I've been saving my first sip of coffee for this moment. So I'm about to just be happy that I'm sitting here talking to you, having my coffee. And you know what? We're going to make the best of this Monday. So I'm all right. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right too. Mondays are just a little stressful in general because there's just a lot to do in a week, as it is for everybody, right? But got the old rent due soon, so naturally, that's when I feel like most pressured is.
That's
like
right. That's right. It's a new month, isn't it? I haven't paid bills either yet, so
yeah,
love that.
Love that.
Big fan. But
otherwise, things are good. We've had a lot of rain, so like my backyard is soaked. But
I have loved that. We've probably talked about this before, but big storm guy, big rain guy. So I've been really like living in my element these past few days with that going on.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I made a tasty dinner last night.
What'd you have?
Some homemade flour tortillas, first of all. And then like just some like street style tacos.
Yeah.
Bought a couple of corns on the cob, charred them in a cast iron pan, threw a little butter in there, and
what kind of
those up, put them in a taco with some avocado and shredded chicken, and it was all very tasty.
I love tacos, man. I think that's like my at this stage of my life, that's my favorite thing.
Yeah, Mexican food and Asian food are the two things that I feel bad now because when I say Asian food, I'm really thinking like sushi, but I know Film Addict, if they're listening, are like, oh, what about Thai food? And I didn't name it, it wasn't in my list, but I still like Thai food. It just isn't, But sushi and tacos are my two go-to.
Have you ever seen, not to get too off track here, but the like sushi burrito? I think it's disgusting, even though I too love sushi and tacos. The proportions just feel way off. It's like, imagine like a burrito, but like it's like the same components as a sushi roll. And I just feel like you lose something. Like
some things are better left separated.
Yeah, agreed. I've never had one though, so I mean, maybe I just don't know. But if any of y'all have had a sushi burrito, let us know your thoughts. But it always grossed me out.
This was like pre-wife days because my wife and I recently played WoW together and it was really fun. But I remember years ago, like 15 plus years ago, I had a girlfriend who knew I loved playing WoW, and she was like, "Let's play together." And I was just like, "Nah, I think I'm good." I was like, I feel like those worlds should stay separate.
Yeah.
So anyway, nowadays you might as well just throw it all together. But
I was thinking of that Seinfeld bit.
Yeah, worlds are colliding.
Yeah. All right, yeah. So let's see. I don't think we have anything out of the ordinary to talk about. Just the normal stuff. Join our Discord if you haven't already. There will be a link down in the description below. We will be having our Critical Role watch party. I think is like the next big thing as far as that's concerned this Thursday.
We'll have a Critical Role episode before that too.
Right. True. Yes. Thank you. Probably, I guess either Tuesday or Wednesday. We haven't really.
Probably either tomorrow afternoon or Wednesday. Actually, it probably won't be tomorrow afternoon because we have a meetup with one of our subscribers who's local, which is fun. and then I got D&D that night. So probably that'll come out on Wednesday. Would be my guess.
Okay. So yeah, we got that watch party Thursday, and then just the regular of everything here. Our live stream Friday as well. That'll be 1 p.m. Central Time.
Which one other thing we've floated with Will and I, we mentioned on the stream, was doing these deep dive discussions for Worlds Beyond and Critical Role, doing them as a live stream for people who want to just hang out and talk while we talk, and then also maybe answering some questions as we're chatting things through. If that's an idea you like, let us know, and we might do that. It would be kind of impromptu in that Will and I, our process is really like, hey, when do we want to record this? And since this is just a hobby for us, it's more kind of like, yeah, this time slot works. So it won't be like in advance, but we could put up like an event in the Discord kind of last minute to be like, hey, tomorrow at 11 a.m. we're going to be live streaming our discussion if anyone wants to join. So if that's something that you like, that idea, let us know. Otherwise, we'll just keep doing it this way.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine it'll be like an occasional thing. I mean, I guess we could, if people loved it, do it for every episode, but even if it'd be fun to just do it every once in a while, if nothing else.
Especially if it's like a really big episode.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think that's pretty much it of the normal announcements. So unless you have anything else. Alrighty. Well, with that out of the way, let's jump into Worlds Beyond Number. And as you guys know, we like to do a recap before we jump into our full discussion, and we cut that recap out, host it separately for your viewing convenience over on YouTube. So if you find yourself just on the recap, want to hear our full discussion, that will also be linked down in the description below. Without further ado, this was episode 25, The Retinue. So the episode picks up with Ursulon. So we're back in Kalaya's house with her whole family, and he's basically waking up and starting the day by having some pancakes. There's a cute little moment with Roro, but they eat their pancakes, and Kalaya, he then goes and speaks with Kalaya, and she looks at his shield, which again, if you'll recall, he had painted this tree on, and Kalaya loves it and is basically like, hey, that witch friend of yours, you should really have her look at this, because I think there's something she could do to kind of help unlock its true potential. And Ursulon's like, okay, great. And speaking of her, can you help me get to the North Pole? Like, I need to get there. And she's like, oh, like, how quick do you need to get there? And he's like, yesterday, basically. And then so they have a quick discussion about how might they do that. But Kalaya then asks, are you still looking for it? Like, have you not found it yet? And referring to, or she didn't say not found it yet, but basically asked if he's still searching for this honor, which is what originally took him away from his home all those years ago. And she says, if so, that's your way home. That's where your breath is. And Ursulon says he did like regain his breath for the first time recently. But he's not found his way home. And she's like, okay, well, how do we get you to the other side of the world? So she then burrows into this big pile of junk, essentially, and Ursulon like peeks in to where she burrowed, and Brennan describes this like 20-foot long corridor with shelves and like just this crazy big expanse you wouldn't have expected in this room. Ursulon kind of dives in after, and there's like a whole different vibe in this part of the house, and I may be mistaken. This is something we'll probably talk about in the discussion, but I think this was the near spirit. It's like a near spirit type of place. But anyway, her children, Kalaya's children, since they're halflings, can get lost in here. But Ursulon, as a full-fledged wild one, is going to be fine. So they, hustle around in there a bit, but eventually come out, Kalaya carrying a golden bridle of some sort. And Kalaya then basically tells her whole family, like, hey, Uncle Ursulon unfortunately has to go. And so everyone gets sad and they say their goodbyes. There's another really cute moment with Roro where Ursulon makes him promise to keep a secret. And he casts his first spell by like digging a little hole and breathing a whisper into it. So Ursulon and Kalaya leave, and she begins telling him about this bridle that she got, and it can call upon the aid of spirit steeds that may be able to help him get where he needs to go. She then asks about his journey home over the years and asks if he's been able to touch the near spirit. So this is why I was confused about the burrow earlier. And again, we'll talk about it. And he says, yes, he's been able to like touch the near spirit. He's just never been able to cross back into the threshold. And so Kalaya says, okay, well, walk with me. So they leave, like go back into the forest and are walking through. And at some point, Kalaya like starts to hear music, and she's like, Ursulon, can you hear that? And he can't hear anything. And in this moment, Ursulon gets a glimmer of his sister's true form. Her glamour kind of like flickers away. And she says, I should not go any further. My family needs me, and I don't want to disappoint them. So Ursulon says his goodbye. She turns back, and she says, come back soon. So she turns and walks away. At this point, Ursulon uses divine sense, and he kind of realizes that he's touching this barrier, this threshold to the spirit world, and he cannot pass it, as we know, but he can walk along its edge. And it's basically which way does he want to go? So he makes like a perception or insight check, and he doesn't sense any beasts or spirits nearby, but he can like hear running water, and also like that's one direction, but then the other direction, it feels like these shadows are growing longer, and then suddenly he can hear footsteps. And Brennan describes it as like past the water he can hear there's a road and one who walks down it. And Ursulon's like, yeah, I'm gonna go the other way. So at that point he hits a nat 20 on his survival check and basically just starts sprinting down following this path. And he does that for a while until suddenly he realizes he's standing in a glade. Like he's suddenly somewhere else somehow. And in this glade, all around him is kudzu. And he tries to figure out, like, wait, how did I just get here? And basically just has this realization that, like, it's kind of like spirit stuff that brought him here. And he is on a comb somehow. And striding out from this glade surrounding him is Orima of the Reaching Green. And moving with her is this, like, gorgeous white steed. Ursulon just immediately kneels in front of her, and Orima smiles and like a tear is running down her cheek, and she embraces him and is like, I owe you so much. And also tell the witch of Toma that my respect is given to a precious few, but it is hers. And Ursulon says, I'm trying to go see her right now, actually. And is this horse perhaps here to help me in that regard? And Orima says this is Halimon, and his business is his own, but I'm happy to make the introduction. She thanks Ursulon again and then takes her leave. So Ursulon introduces himself to this horse and tells him his mission. Brendan has him roll an animal handling check. He gets a 16, and the horse kind of like nuzzles up to him. And Ursulon puts on this golden bridle onto him. And he can tell inside the horse's mouth there's like a light, like a source of light. And this horse has like a solar quality to it. So Ursulon mounts up, asks if the horse knows which way is north, and they basically take to the skies. And I think that's a good place to break for the first half.
Yeah, so we transition over to Suvi arriving at the North Pole, and Indri with Ame greeting Suvi as Suvi arrives. There's this interesting sort of like semi moment of tension of the airship docking, Suvi stepping out with herself, Straw, the wizard Straw, I think was their name, and then a multitude of other wizards who are stepping out. And it's this awkward tension of, Brennan describes it as like Suvi's here on behalf of the Citadel and is essentially not welcome, not permitted to be here. And Brennan describes it almost like a riddle for Ame to solve, in that Ame is allowed to have a retinue, but this sort of contradicts like what's the norm of wizards and witches intermingling. So finally, Ame extends a formal invite to Suvi, to which Indri approves of, and Suvi is then allowed to access then the castle. However, Ame then asks also about, well, what about all these other wizards? And Indri says, yes, have you extended the invitation to them? If so, name them. To which Ame obviously doesn't know their name, and it's kind of this cool little detail about, the naming of things that we've seen Brennan use in the past. And because Ame can't name the wizards, Indri will not allow like this extension of the invite. Suvi then offers that if she gives her word as her bond, would Indri allow these wizards so long as they, basically behave? And Indri asks for collateral, essentially, something that is representative of this promise between herself as the witch of this domain and this wizard who has arrived. And Suvi ultimately offers the emerald ring that was her father's and hands it over to Indri. Indri kisses it, and Brennan describes frost spreading over the ring and then disappearing before handing it back to Suvi. And Indri basically says, this ring belongs to me henceforth as long as it's within my domain, but I grant it back to you. And if you break your promise, or if any of your wizards break this promise, I will come and take it from you. There's also, by the way, Indri being majestically beautiful. Suvi does have to do a wisdom saving throw. And with a 13, Brennan basically says, you still have your same clarity of mind, but you are absolutely smitten by Indri. And also Brennan describes like other wizards, like one of which was like hunching forward, just like locked in on Indri. Ame calls the fox to arrive and says like Suvi's here, and the fox comes. And there is this interesting dialogue with Indri where Ame's sort of like trying to not defend Suvi and like defend Suvi's character, but like Suvi very much is still very mad about the nature of how Ame left, and it's kind of like snapping at Ame. And Indri's even like kind of in the middle of them is like, Suvi can speak for herself. There's also a detail of Indri's like magical aide, like servant who arrives, who offers to take the staffs from the wizards, like has like this repository or thing for them to put their staffs in, and they're disguised as walking sticks essentially. And Suvi is very hesitant to do this, knowing how much power is within the staffs themselves. There's an arcana check to figure out, like, will this reservoir like manipulate the staffs in some way? And Brennan basically says the repository isn't magical itself, but Suvi realizes that there was probably some kind of spell cast on them already as they arrived. However, she is able to convince Aabria to allow them to keep their staves as it being like their walking sticks. All this to say, Indri says she must take her leave. She has some work to do. Ame asks, what's this work? What is this work? And Indri says, like, the stars are shifting. Like, she has a duty to study them. And even says that Suvi might actually be interested in that kind of work, but it's unrelated to the conclave meeting. And she assigns Costa to take the two of them to their keeps. And even says that there's a keep already established for the Witch of the World's Heart for when Grandmother Wren would always come, and that there's another place that she'll provide for Suvi. So they leave. Costa takes Suvi to her place first, but then Suvi says, I'd like to go be brought to the keep of the Witch of the Wind and Stars. And then Costa also takes Ame to her place, and there's like a little like trinket hanging on a door that is clearly something that Grandmother Wren has made. It's also as they're like walking through these keeps that they see an area with like these statues. Some of them look kind of ghastly and some of them look beautiful, like of all sorts of different designs. And they realize that these are or were likely people who were turned to statue at some point. There's also a moment where Suvi and Ame Suvi just like doesn't hold back and just chews out Ame. It's kind of like, where is Ursulon? Is Ursulon alive? And basically rips Ame apart for being like, hey, I welcomed you into the Citadel, and the only reason we were in the situation we were in was because of the decisions you made. Like, you broke the curse, you put yourself in the coma, you left when Steele said not to, and is basically calling Ame selfish and ungrateful. Their conversation is sort of comes to a natural close, but is sort of interrupted as they hear the sounds of hooves as Ursulon arrives on this stallion, this solar-esque stallion that seems to melt the snow underneath. And it's underneath that snow that they see the hundreds of years old of stone that's since been covered by all the snow, and they see the writings of the very first witch of the wind and stars etched on the stone. And that is where our episode comes to a close. Episode 25, The Retinue of The Wizard, the Witch, and the Wild One. And if you're watching just our recap, remember there's a link in the description box. If you want to see our full episode discussion, you can click on that and check on that as well.
Pop, pop.
Pop, pop.
I think it was the first words of the Witch of the World's Heart. That's what I wrote down, at least.
Oh, was that what it was? Oh, okay.
I'm not confident.
That would actually make more sense because that's physically where they were near. Okay, cool.
I'm not saying that's for sure, but that's just what I had written down.
That actually is probably true, actually. So yeah, that might be true, actually.
Well, alrighty. All right, short episode, man.
Yeah, but very Brennan's so good at like prose. Like as he talks about the ring that Suvi offers up and says like, you know, in a sea of rings, she knows this is the one you would choose.
Yeah.
Like such a meaningful line that you wouldn't really I would never think of something like that, but
right.
Yeah, a short episode, not a lot happened, but some very like well articulated details from Brennan that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, agreed. I'm wondering, like, and Brennan ended this one, right? If I recall, like, didn't Brennan shut down the episode, which I thought was interesting. Yeah. So this wasn't like a Taylor Moore, like, let's cut the episode here, because So I wonder. It makes me curious for what's about to happen in this next episode. But this reminded me of the early episodes of the campaign where they were like basically an hour, but then I got used to like the 2-hour ones. So
I know. But speaking of Taylor Moore though, like I know we like goose over this every episode, but like, dude, every time I'm just like, bro, this is so good.
Yes,
like,
I have
so well.
I have a note about this specifically. It was the near spirit moments, especially with the music.
Yes,
it was just so
absolutely.
good.
I can hear myself, by the way. I'm not sure. I just now noticed it. I didn't notice it before, but I can't hear it now.
Okay. Hopefully
I might have fixed it up.
It might be when I'm talking because like my mic's like activity based, but I also turned you down. So hopefully it.
Okay. And I'll make sure I just don't talk when you're talking.
I think it'll be fine because I turned it down.
Okay.
But yeah, bro, it still blows my mind that he had never done anything like this before.
Some people are just like gifted at stuff. I suspect he did. Like I've learned more and more over the years that like even if you haven't done something before, a lot of times you've done like a related skill, like in a different. And so like he obviously has the skill sets, but that the moment you specifically talked about with the near spirit was exactly what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Like, especially when like the music hit and what's her name? Kalaya.
Yeah.
Was like, you could tell she wanted to go. Like a big part of her wanted to go and go home. That was like just a beautiful moment too.
It was. This is a good chance to just sit there for a second. What do you think that was? Like, was that just the music of the spirit realm, or and that's kind of the idea, or do you think it was something like more specific than that?
No, I think it was that. I think Brennan was doing a really great job of articulating just some of these like more like palpable like sensory characteristics of the spirit world, and it reminded me. Here's honestly what it reminded me of. Did you ever see City of Angels with Nicolas Cage?
Yeah, great movie, man.
That is it though?
I
haven't
haven't
seen it in
seen
a long
it in
time.
like 20 years, but I remember liking it. That Goo Goo
Me
Dolls
too.
song, man, it
Oh yeah,
just
dude.
gets you
Well,
right in it.
there's a lot of movies that like you see when you're younger and you're like, this is the best movie. Then you see it like 20 years later and you're like, ooh, this was a bad movie.
Have you
But
seen
I
it
saw
recently? Have
I
you?
haven't. I
Okay.
haven't. I own it, but I haven't. I
Well, so
will say though,
you
here's
like
the
it
deal.
though, right? Like,
Oh yeah. Oh
okay.
yeah. And I remember telling a friend about it and being like, this movie's awesome. And then they watched it and they were like, it kind of sucked. And I was just like,
What?
I hate you. Yeah, like why are we friends? So I think I'd loaned the DVD. I was like, give it back. I want
Yeah,
it back.
you don't deserve it.
Anyway, so this is what it reminded me of was how the angels could hear music in the morning.
Right.
And so that's what it was very reminiscent of that.
I
Of
forgot
like,
about that. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, just a very cool detail.
Yeah. I like I'm I'm wondering if Brennan was, because there were the whole, like, not that I expected this to get sorted in this moment, because obviously the conclave meeting was hanging over everything, but this kind of thing that Brennan introduced with the family arguing about what Kalaya should do, like they want her to go
Yeah.
back, some want her to stay. I'm curious if we'll revisit this, like if Ursula will come back and this will be like another kind of story point, or if it's just world, like flavor to the world building. We won't necessarily come back to it.
Yeah, and I think it could be either, obviously, but for me, it feels like a really great like loose end to like later wrap up, like a reason for him to come back. But also, it is really great flavor of lore, of just like the choice between the spirit world and like the family she's, and also like the interesting detail of which we talked about it last episode, but she's physically going to die, but her family or whichever one it was who was like, hey, she doesn't have to if we take her back to it kind of reminds me a little bit of like The Good Place without like just sort of light spoilers. Have you seen The Good Place?
Yep.
So just like very light spoilers without saying much more, but there comes a point of like you've had so much of a good thing that the end of it is kind of a
kind of
nice,
gives it meaning, like.
Yeah, right. And so I wonder for Kalaya if it's like, yes, I could go be eternal, but like maybe there's a sweetness of, I don't know.
Yeah.
So
I actually liked it. And that's not to say that if this is revisited and, here, okay, I'm trying to collect my thoughts in a coherent way here. I really liked it, and I'm going to explain why here in a second. So if it's never revisited, I'm okay with that. But if it is revisited, I'm also okay with that, because I think there's a lot to explore. And just because I like this doesn't mean that can't be good too. Right. But what I liked about it was especially the kind of parallel to Ursulon, that they talked about his honor and how that's his breath and how he's been searching for it. I think Kalaya's breath is her family, because that's what led her out in the first place. Like she left the spirit realm for her family, for Ursulon, and now she has family again. So it would be like if she left her family to go back to the spirit realm, that would be like the antithesis of everything we know about her character. So it made sense to me that she would choose them.
Yeah. So just for clarity, your breath is metaphorical in a way, but also physical. Like it represents itself in kind of like what is most important to you, or like for Ursulon, it was honor or like seeking honor. Right? Am I understanding this correctly?
Yeah, that's how I understand. I think it's kind of like I don't think we could like put a finger on exactly what it is. Like, I think that's intentional, but yeah, that's how I understand it.
Yeah. And more functionally speaking, like becoming like your full capable self also implies a level of like self-awareness and or ownership, like holding that breath as well. Right?
Yeah, I think it's a good way to put it.
Okay. And then we know that the man in black said, I've held my breath.
Yeah, like the dawn of time or something.
which, by the way, the implication was the man in black was coming down the road, right?
Chasing him, basically. Been walking since the Citadel, I guess.
Bro, I'm so curious what Brennan had in mind. If like if we had gotten like a nat 1 on that on the survival check,
Yeah.
I kind of just wonder like what would Brennan have had in mind? Because remember the Man in Black had asked for Ursulon to walk with him for a little
Right.
while.
Right.
So
I don't
I don't know. It's so interesting.
It's very interesting because, again, this was in episode 1, which yeah, it's just fair because we know he's got a date with Ame at least a year from now,
Right.
but it seems like
I think we're like 3 or 4 months into that.
yeah, like I think we're still a ways away from it. But it's
Right.
just interesting that he's not just, and I mean, I guess Ursulon wasn't part of that pact, if you will. So like
Right.
Ursulon isn't contractually obligated to be there a year from now, but he's probably
Right.
gonna be. So I just
Right.
thought it's interesting that the Man in Black is chasing down Ursula. And chasing down might not be the right word, but like
Is
pursuing him,
Well, here's
even
what's
though they have
interesting.
this year date thing.
I have a theory that I want
Okay.
to float with you.
Yeah.
Okay. We know, well, I shouldn't say we know. We've talked about, and there seems to be some agreement that the Man in Black wants the world heart, for lack of like a better phrasing, wants access to it.
Yeah.
Something regarded directly to Ame. Okay. We know that as soon as Rin died, that he arrived, presumably to maybe take advantage of that. And we know that Ame said, "Come back in 1 year." Flash forward to the time in the Citadel when they were talking to Sly. Sly said to Ursulon, "Hey, you need a shield because in 1 year's time, if you don't have a shield, they will die." So I'm just saying it's interesting, and
Yeah.
maybe what if the Man in Black doesn't necessarily exist outside of time, but like we know the spirit world, that time is very different. What if the Man in Black is also somehow aware that Ursulon is a key barrier to access, taking advantage or killing Ame outright or what have you, and that's why we keep seeing these interactions with Ursulon, which
I could
could
see
just be
that.
coincidence, but
Like leverage.
yeah, but which regardless of the intentions there, I do think it's an interesting detail. Ursulon being told you have a year to have a shield, and Ame asking,
Yeah.
the guy
Yeah,
to
I
give
never
him
put
1
that
year.
together. That
I only did about 8 seconds ago, so
I mean that I think
so
that probably has to be it. Just in terms of a story like this, like that's kind of too
right,
clean. Cuz otherwise it's just this kind of random ambiguous thing, that
right,
just like a scary little, oh, they're going to die in a year if you don't get one, but I think that
yeah.
just lines up very nicely. Um so yeah, I want like
Sorry, I didn't mean to cough into the microphone there,
oh,
but
you're good. I wonder like I don't know, maybe it's not worth it getting into it for this episode, but I just wonder what that encounter a year from now is going to look like. Like, surely they're not going to fight this thing. Like,
you
even if it's in a
wouldn't.
year, this is like feels like it's one of, if not like the most powerful
Yeah,
spirits. So, um,
I
yeah,
am. I am interested though. If there was something like that, I think it would be an extended combat. In that, how combat's been traditionally handled. Traditionally, I mean, we're however many years into this now. I guess 2 years now, a year and a half.
of just worlds,
Yeah.
I think we just hit a year,
Okay. We just did a year. Okay.
like a month or two ago, maybe. I think.
Okay. So just over a year. Every combat has been like a quick couple of actions, like a round almost,
Yeah,
with
yeah,
the exception of the finale of season 1 or of arc 1, whatever, where it was kind of like a whole episode thing.
right.
I think that kind of combat, if we get something like that, will fully be like a longer form, um, a longer form, especially as the players like have more stuff they can do. When you're
Right.
level like 1, it's like Eldritch Blast,
Yeah.
you know. So
Yeah. Yeah, I'm interested to see because, like, not that I don't want to say they've shied away from it, but like D&D is really been on the back burner of this story. Like we have roles, and I think those are informing the story, of course, but it's not like it's definitely second to everything else, I would say.
Yeah,
So
I think if you didn't, and I think that's intentional in the sense of like if you had never played D&D, you could fully listen and watch. You could fully listen to Worlds Beyond and not ever even
yeah,
know. Like you would maybe know it's D&D, but you would know like the details of 5e or what have you. Because
right.
it comes up so rarely. The only time it really comes up is give me a blank roll and they say their number. But
Yeah,
otherwise you don't get like the more technical, and I think that's intentional. I think a lot of that gets edited out.
yeah.
um so, and even just with that, by the way, speaking of, this is like a random aside, speaking of editing things out, I saw an interview with Brennan and I can't think of the guy's name, but they were talking about Worlds Beyond Number and like why Brennan likes the format they're in. And Brennan was talking about how he wasn't overtly saying it's happened, but it sounds like this is something they've maybe had to do or will do. But he was talking about like reshooting things, like if he'll listen back on something, and if it's too like clunky or he didn't describe something the way he wanted to, what he said was it's very easy to get back together and re-record it.
Hmm.
He didn't actually say it happened, but
Yeah,
so it all that to say, not only do we not get a lot of that gritty technical stuff, like in the sense of maybe it's edited out, it could be that even when it does get like that, that maybe they kind of lift it back out and say like, let's maybe like have that interaction again, or
interesting.
it is produced, I guess, which
Yeah,
is Brennan's background in that Dimension 20 is compared to like Critical Role is a far more produced
right.
show. So that's my random segue about production on World Beyond.
But no,
So
it makes sense. That's just kind of the direction they've been going with this, and I'm enjoying it. But I am curious to see how like a more intense combat might be handled in this style.
mhm.
But yeah, I forgot where we were.
We were talking about the Man in Black,
That's right.
Kalaya opting not to go any further into the woods.
That's right.
He comes across Orima,
Yeah.
which is a nice little like kind of final loop of that story from Arc One. That was really a nice touch too.
Yeah, I did not expect that.
Hmm.
Which crazy that I mean, it makes sense, of course. But like, she was so rough on the exterior that I didn't expect kind of this soft moment from her.
Yeah, we got this version that wasn't like full of rage and like you know pure unadulterated chaos.
Yeah. I
So
mean, she says she owes Ursulon a lot, and Ame is one of the few people she respects. So like it's like a pretty powerful ally to, not that, they're gonna be able to call on her to come do any task they want, but just I bet that's something that comes into play at some point.
little Deus
Um
Ex Machina, like we're fighting this troll called Orima.
Oriba!
Uh, Siang.
Uh, um but yeah, I like that whole sequence. And Hollymon seems really cool. Reminded me of Shadowfax from Lord of the Rings.
Totally. Yeah, for me it was a combination of Shadowfax and not, this is like a weaker, I don't know why it reminded me of this, but like Never Ending Story, in that like the big dog. I'm sorry guys, I saw it like 30 years ago. I don't remember any of these characters' names. But so the big dog who like carries the main character like onwards, but like is its own like powerful entity.
Yeah.
That's kind of the implication I got of Halamon, was not a pet, but like a powerful, for lack of a better phrase, powerful like divine creature, like in its own right.
Yeah.
So,
You're talking about the dragon, right?
oh yeah, I always when I was a kid though, I thought of it as a dog
It kind of
because
looks like his face kind of
it kind
looks
of
like a dog, I guess.
it kind of looks like a big sheepdog, you know?
I mean, I can see it. I can see it. I just was making
Can
sure we were
we
talking about the same thing.
can we edit this part out for people who, get real mad about never ending story lore being correct?
It's just a big old pup.
When you said the dragon ride, I was like, oh God, I've done it. I've done it now.
No, I can totally see that. I'm curious, like
that's why you weren't clicking with me when I said it, because I was like, the dog, and you were like, okay,
I was wondering if I was wondering if Never Ending Story was the wrong story and you had gotten your wires crossed.
Yeah, I was talking about Homeward Bound. That's kind of where I had gone. Was
great movie though.
Great movie.
Classic.
I tried watching it with my kids though. A little scary. There's a part where like the animals like go over like a waterfall, and like the cat goes over a waterfall. Spoilers.
Yeah. I remember that.
Dude, my 4-year-old like was. You don't realize the stuff that sorry, this is like way over dramatizing it. I was gonna say the stuff we're desensitized to. It's a cat, it's okay. But you just things that you're just like, okay, whatever. Like for a 4-year-old, like this was like pure chaos. She was just like, what happened? And I was like, it's dead. I didn't do that. But anyway.
Yeah, great. They made like a few of those, I think.
They did. I don't remember if the sequels were any good. I think they did like a different pet in one of them.
Yeah, I think at least like the second one was the same animals, but then I think they started going off the wall with it.
Yeah. The movies that didn't change the animals, All Dogs Go to Heaven.
The animated movie.
Yeah, that was the same.
They have an easier time keeping the same ones. Was there a sequel to that?
Oh yeah, All Dogs Go to Heaven too.
I don't know if I ever saw that one.
Yeah, it kind of traumatized me a little bit.
Really?
It's very sad, scary movie. Is all I remember. So, another animal movie. Why are we now? Am I doing this? Just nervously naming off animal movies. Did you ever see the Goofy movie?
The Goofy movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember it, but I've definitely seen it.
That's about all I have to say. Have you seen it?
He is a dog that owns a dog, which is weird.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I forgot where we were once again, but Orima, I guess. Oh no, not Shadowfax, Hollymon.
Yeah, Hollymon.
Yeah. I thought a couple things. One, I wonder if if that bridle is a one-time use, or if like. If he could call on Hollymon again, potentially.
I will say I could see Brennan being totally just like, yeah, you have the bridle. Like, I think sometimes like giving players really powerful stuff is really fun, but I know some DMs, there's like an apprehension of it being like, I don't want to break the game or make it too powerful, which is understandable. But Brennan just seems like the kind of DM to be like, yeah, you have it. But then I guess also, if you can just fast travel anywhere, it wouldn't really quite. I don't know. What do I know?
Yeah, I could see it. I think he could like keep it, but it's like not as if Hollymon's just gonna be like part of the party the whole time. Like
he starts talking. So what do we do now?
Well, we got to get some feed for my boy Holly over here.
Yeah.
Because also I don't know if like they probably all three can't fit on the horse, and so. How useful is it if one person can go somebody real quick, but the other two can't? Like, it might be one of those types of things where, like, there may come instances where it's useful, but, like, it won't be an everyday type of thing because of reasons like that or something.
Yeah. It could be, like a once, not even like a once per day, but just like, like a once per something, like a limited use item, I guess. So that makes sense.
The solar aspect was really cool.
Yeah.
Which like this jumping toward the end, but not that it really matters. The melting of the snow I thought was interesting. And again, we're not certain on which it was. But what do you think that text? I didn't really know what to take from that.
Well, what I took from it is there was a point where there wasn't all this snow. Right. And for me, it said more about injury than it did about like time passing. That, and this is maybe like leaning too heavily on the implication of it, but that injury became the Witch of Wind and Stars at some point, and also brought like the heavy snowstorm, blizzard, what have you, that like maybe the area was already like that, but like especially like made that a key nature of the domain. And for me, it communicates, and this is like probably a reach, but it communicates a lot more about like her nature, like this sort of icy, biting, like there's sort of like this insipid, is that the right word? Like just like I don't know. That's kind of all the implications I got from that, but that's probably like way
No, I
too
like that. Like, so previous Witches of the Wind and Stars weren't necessarily frosty.
yeah, maybe.
I can see that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was wondering.
Um,
Because I mean, to write on the stone, there would have to have been no snow,
right.
right?
Yeah.
So
See,
if she like
that's
cleared out the snow to like write a message,
yeah.
if you read this one day,
That's what I was curious about. Like,
I guess it could be that, yeah.
do you think this message was left intentionally, like with some sort of
Mm.
witch foresight, or or like, not that it was exactly that, but do you think that like this is a message like for Ame, or do you think it's just like, you know, Judy was here scrawled in the wall? Like, is it more of that type of thing?
I don't think there's a like I don't think there's anything specifically for Ame. I think like for Brennan, this is like a lore. It's a lore detail.
Okay.
Of like how witches have interacted, or like how things have changed, or just a little insight as to who the previous witch was. Maybe I don't think it's anything like multiversal time travel or anything like that. So
Yeah. I think I would agree with you that it's more like that. Like, it's some hint into how things used to be or something like that.
yeah,
Um but yeah, it was certainly interesting, and we already talked about this a little bit, but also that Brennan just decided to end the episode there, I thought was interesting. And I'm guessing it's because this next episode is basically going to be this mission.
meeting, right? Oh, you think the mission or the meeting or both?
Oh, yeah, I mean, I guess both. I mean, I guess I mean, I'm interested to see how this plays out. Like, I wonder if those two things will happen simultaneously, or if like will Suvi try to do that during the mission, or not, or excuse me, during the meeting, or will there
Yeah,
be like the meeting and then like kind of in the downtime Suvi's going to do that?
yeah. I think I was gonna check the wiki because I was. Well, do we know how long till the meeting's supposed to happen? Like, are we like on the eve of the meeting, or like are we? Because like the timing, I've kind of lost track of like.
Yeah. I think we're real close to it, just in terms of, you know,
Okay.
but it could be 2 days, like, for all I know. But no one else has arrived yet, I don't think,
I was
which
gonna
is
say, like,
interesting.
presumably the next big thing then would be the arrival of um
The other,
the other witches,
yeah,
which haven't been named outside of their domains, other than like I just looked. We know Marara. And what
right.
was Marara's domain?
I don't remember off the top of my head,
Okay.
and
Okay.
unfortunately I lost all my notes.
I know, dude. That's a pain.
Yeah.
That's an ouchie. Okay. Yeah, well, so I think we're likely getting that meeting in probably the next 2 episodes then. I guess, well, actually, I guess I don't know how long this arc is going to be, because I mean, you can have a whole D&D session that's an hour or a couple of hours. I remember I had like 4 or 5 episode sessions with one of my campaigns, and they were like, how many days has gone by? And I was like, this has all been the same morning for like 6 episodes now.
Yeah.
So y'all been through some drama. So I could definitely, I guess we'll just see what Brennan has in mind for this, but it doesn't feel like, I shouldn't say it doesn't feel like, I just kind of wonder if there's more to this arc than just the time at the keep. Like, if they'll
Yeah.
go,
Like, will chapter 3 just
elsewhere.
be this conclave meeting, and then chapter 4 will
Right.
launch into something new? It feel with how they've been doing it so far, I feel like it could just be this. Well, that would make it a really short chapter, but I mean, who's to say that there aren't going to be really short chapters.
Right. Well, if you think about it, though, we've had 2 episodes, right? Let me see here. This was episode
25.
This is episode 25. This is our second one. So, and then the first arc went to episode 12. Is that right?
I don't
14?
remember.
Well, so yeah, they're in like the 10 to 15 episode range. So, I mean, it could very well just be here. Presumably whatever happens in this arc is what's going to set up either like the longer term, like we still don't really know what like the big picture objective is. Like I know we in arc 1 we talked like, is it going to be like a long quest to get Wavebreaker, which they got relatively fast, or in arc 2? Well, no, at the end of arc 1. So presumably it's going to set up what, I don't know. We still don't really have like the grand narrative, I guess, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Of like, which isn't a bad thing, but like it makes me wonder, will there be like a bigger, go forth and acquire these 7 legendary artifacts over the next 8 years. So I don't know.
Yeah, I guess either this meeting is going to be the entire chapter and it'll be a shorter one, or whatever the fallout of this meeting will also be this chapter. So like, if Suvi is unsuccessful, I think that's going to lead to one direction, like a lot of chaos probably. But if Suvi, like, because there's the Citadel side of things, right? They've got their own plans, but then there's also just the Ame side of things, which this conclave presumably is going to try to like vote her out, or for lack of a better word. So I think that like, if Ame is able to successfully convince them not to do that, then there's going to be some ask like, all right, well, if, and again, I'm not saying this is what's going to happen, but just as an example, they're like, okay, Witch of the World's Heart, like, we'll give you a chance, like, bro, prove that what you're saying is right and go do this thing. And so maybe that mission will be this arc, or this chapter rather.
What was said from Sly? Was it that, because I know they said they're going to try to eliminate her station. The implication I also got from this was that they would try to kill her, but I don't think that was what was actually said. It was, if Suvi's not there, Ame will die.
Yeah.
Right? But is there an implication of something like nefarious beyond just eliminating her station? Like these witches will want to hurt Ame?
I think kind of that like implication was there for us to like think about, but I guess it just depends on what eliminating a station looks like, like, can you eliminate the station without eliminating the witch? I don't imagine it's like a, knife, like they're going to like brutally jump her at the dinner table type of situation, but like, it's probably not good for her station to be eliminated, whatever shape that takes. So yeah.
Yeah. Is this bad, guys? Yeah, it's probably.
Ooh, awkward.
I will say with Ursulon back in the fold of the group, it feels like we're due. Like Aabria, I loved how Aabria handled this. I mean, she did not hold back. I mean, she really let Ame know, like, hey, this is getting kind of old.
Yeah.
And Ursulon's complicit in that as well. So like, it feels like in the next episode or 2, we're gonna, like, this conversation has to happen, right? Like, they can't just keep, like, I mean, Ame's not gonna do it again, right? Where like Suvi's like, okay, here we go again.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I loved that moment from Aabria. And we've talked at length about the Citadel and how they're shady and stuff, and all that remaining true. Aabria was right with everything she said. Like, it was very disrespectful of Ame not to at least like just talk to her about it and stuff. So I'm glad that she kind of laid it all out there, and I love that the fox was like speechless for the first time. I love that detail, and Ame didn't really get to say her piece in response, so I feel like we're definitely going to have that conversation, if you will, especially now that they're all together. And I'm really curious, like, on some level, they're not going to just say, we hate you, and the party splits up, and, like, because the nature of the D&D campaign, like, they're not going to be forever torn apart by this conversation. So whatever like agreement, that's not the right word, but whatever they come to, it's going to be really interesting when then like the next thing that happens is Suvi like super betrays Ame's trust with this whole secret mission, so
Oh,
they're
yeah.
going to be like right back to butting heads, if you will. So it's
That's kind of
really
an important
interesting.
detail,
Yeah, this whole
isn't it?
how this whole dynamic is going to continue to evolve. So I'm really interested to see like, because even if the plan is successful, there will still be friction between Ame and Suvi because the fake plan is almost certainly going to get revealed, like by
Well, the fake plan,
design.
yeah, and the fake plan is still just it's even that as a fake plan is still a betrayal of trust.
Right. So I think, yeah. So like, no
Um,
matter what, there's going to be that betrayal, and then it could be even a bigger betrayal if she finds out the real plan.
so do we? I know we've talked about maybe Steel casted Gaius on Suvi. Do
Yeah.
we think Indri has like Brennan said? There's nothing complicit about the magic, but could there be like Manchurian Candidate esque feel of like Indri says like a code word and Suvi is like now like I don't know
From the
complicit to do
from the
from
ring
just like
spell or from
from well whatever if the kiss on the ring was anything, but also just like the wisdom saving throw of the 13,
mm,
like it almost felt like Brennan wasn't telling the whole. He was like, "Yeah, you keep your you're not
yeah.
under any spell." I don't know. That was one thing I wondered too. Was I was like, is there anything more to this that Brennan's not saying?
I could see something like that for sure. I mean, she is a seemingly supremely powerful witch, so I definitely think she'd have some moves up her sleeve. So yeah, and
It's also interesting that Brennan named Straw. I mean, I guess it's not that interesting, but part of me also wonders if like we know that some of the other wizards were really smitten by Indri, if we could maybe even eventually see like your own turns against you. Like maybe there is full chaos by the end of this arc
yeah,
and they have to like fight their way out against the wizards who um I don't know. That was one thing I thought as well that
yeah,
I thought would be kind of interesting.
yeah. I mean, things definitely have the potential to go very wrong. Um, I loved that Subi failed that though. I was hoping somebody would.
Mm-hmm.
The like the beauty saving throw or whatever. I did think it was interesting how that Brennan like described that moment happening. That Indri smiles at Suvi, and it's because she recognizes something in you that she shares as well. And given
Mm-hmm.
what he said about when Ame first met her, how that worked, like as long as you desire something, like this will work on you, like that effect she has on people. So I was searching for like what's the connection between Suvi and Indri, and I think it's both like their ambition because we know that that's like
Mm.
one of Suvi's best traits, but also kind of like one of her most toxic.
Yeah.
So I like, and to tie this back to what you were saying earlier, like if she is the first witch of the wind and stars that has brought this snow, and whatever the implications of that may be, she might be kind of more sinister than we think, and not that
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
obviously that's
No.
kind of the whole theme with her, like this very beautiful, majestic outward appearance, and maybe like
Mm-hmm.
cold-hearted at the center. But
Yeah.
yeah, I was just wondering if like maybe the ambition and like wanting to rise to the top was the thing that those two shared.
I love that insight. I didn't pick up on that, but I love that insight. I think that's really smart. And yeah, I love how when you say that how it like links the way that I mean, we don't know if she like fully failed it. I think there could be like levels of failure, but the way Brennan precipitated it of like what I don't want to just repeat what you just said, but I think you're right. I think the way Brennan described it links to what is not Abria's true love, but like deep desire
Yeah.
is this success and ability and proficiency and all those other things that come with it. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm with you there. I agree with you.
There's a lot of cool dynamics at play with all of this. And you touched on it in the recap, but also just like kind of the weird riddle of like the respectful laws that need to be followed with you have to invite her as a friend, not because I can't invite the Citadel. Like, I hope there's kind of some more of that, like, linguistic puzzle that has to happen here.
All I gotta say is these guys are professional D&D player. If I did this at one of my tables, man, it would be, we'd be like 2 hours in. They'd be like, "What do I do?"
Well, I guess we gotta leave. We gotta leave because
we gotta
Suvi
go.
can't come.
We're not supposed to be here yet, So that's totally not really honestly digging that much at it'd be me too. I remember I played with one of my players who was doing a one shot with us, and he had a riddle, and there came a point where I just was like, I don't know, man. I have no idea. And he like read it again, like word by word, very frustrated. And I was just like, yep, no clue. So
that's just how it goes with riddles, man. They can be tough, because like you the one that like created it, or at least like found it. Like it makes sense because you know the answer. So you're like, yeah, they'll get this.
Right. I'm like, this is so easy. Yeah. And sometimes, sometimes you have like layers of riddles. You're like, oh, here's the easy one, and here's like the levels harder. And you realize, this is a top level type of group. We said the first one, and that was it. So I will say, in our one shot we did, Tomb of the Warlord, the riddle y'all had where you had to put the blood on the statue, that one y'all got very fast. I used that on another group, and I mean, it was like almost an hour. I was like, oh my gosh.
Was there something else to that room? I meant to ask you that. Because like something was glowing, and so I was curious if like if that was all just still part of it, or if there was like another layer of something there.
Yeah, I think the way I originally cooked it up was like you had to put the blood on the pedestal and the statue or something. Is maybe like why I first explained it, but then once, for the sake of time, like once it went on the statue, it was just like, we just need to, let's just move on for the sake of time.
Because like if that didn't work, it'd probably have been 2.5 hours before we like tried that again. While also, I feel you.
The whole premise originally was to clue people in, like, of all these statues, this is the important one, which should have been obvious anyway because it was the warlord. But it's supposed to be like an added detail of like, because I don't remember if this group did this, but I know the other group spent a lot of time on the other statues. And like, how do we manipulate these other statues? And it was like, those are just like red herrings,
that makes sense.
But yeah. So anyway, Brennan, not very difficult, but like, you have to think about it a little bit, and they figured it out. So I loved the detail then though of like the restriction, like, oh, you want to invite these other wizards? Well, like, what are their names then? And like, oh, okay, well then you can't extend this invite.
I thought that meant they weren't going to be able to come, period. So it was interesting that they still found a workaround for that.
Yeah, and very I thought it was also very ballsy of Suvi to just be like, well, like insisting they should be able to come.
Yeah.
Which little, I won't say unreliable narrator. That's not the right phrasing, but here's Suvi telling Ame, like, I came here for you. You should be grateful.
Yeah.
But also the reason she was insistent on the wizards being here was to help carry out her plan that Steele has. So like I think there's this interesting, like, and I don't know if Suvi's fully self-aware of it or not, but like, I'm here for Ame. This was the whole mission, was to come for Ame. And like, where does that, I feel like it's always like etching back and forth on what's really the top priority for their time here.
Yeah.
So
I think Suvi's kind of like lying to herself about that too. Plus, like, especially coming hot off the betrayal, if I can call it that, from like what Ame did at the Citadel. Like, in Suvi's mind, it's like, I'm here for you. Like, we know if I'm not here, you're gonna die. So like, I think in Suvi's mind, like, and she's doing the right thing. Like, I'm being the better person by still coming here, but I'm gonna get something for me at the same time. Like, I think that's kind of like how she views it.
Right.
I'm curious. I kind of want things to hit the fan. Like, I just want to see what would happen if that happened. But Suvi's gonna be like devastated if she loses that ring. And like, is that the worst that would happen? Like, is the Witcher the Winning Stars really gonna be chill if like, hey, you guys were up to some shady stuff, and I'm only gonna take this ring? Like, could it come to blows, or do you think it would be diplomatically resolved?
I think it. I think it could come to blows.
Because there's no way they can
But
win if that
yeah,
happens, right?
that's the reason that is the only reason why I wouldn't see it coming to blows
Yeah.
is the sheer fact that they could not win. But maybe the fact that Ursulon's a spirit, maybe there's like some restrictions on
Yeah.
this is going to come to blows, but we're not allowed. I don't know. We can't kill a spirit in our own.
Yeah.
domain.
Back to like the linguistic.
Linguissimos.
Back to like those rules, especially like
Yeah.
the fact that they've been invited, like
Yeah.
how far do these kind of unwritten rules how far do they go, like
Yeah.
can there
And
be no violence now whatsoever, or like could
Yeah.
things, since Suvi like broke the trust by trying to spy, like maybe that renders the guest's right null and void or something, I don't know.
And it for me, it plays on the really nice the less grounded like honor pieces of like it's kind of like, I'm gonna combine two worlds here for a second, but in like kind of like more mythological stuff, like a vampire can't enter a home unless it's been invited in, and same thing with we saw with the spirit with
Right.
the Man in Black. Well, also what it reminds me of is the Red Wedding in Game of Thrones, of like oh, there's no danger here because it's just in terms of like hospitality, like
Right.
you don't do this. And it was like it was a deep sin that that the I can't think of the family's name, but that they did that. So I could definitely see like it's not just like a hey, we invited you and you did this and that was really not cool, but like a longer form consequence or outcome by doing this. And then also, I think I almost feel like it has to happen because right now, like there's no way to I feel like resolve Ame and Suvi specifically, in the sense of like Ame has so many more like strikes against Suvi, for lack of a better phrasing. Like,
Yeah.
I think for this to happen, it plays into being like a really easy way for there to be like, take the log out of your own eye a little bit. So I don't know. So, of course it was going to happen regardless anyway. It doesn't matter what I think about it, but But
no, yeah. I mean, you're right. And there has to be, because it's either going to be at least the fake plan or both. And I wonder if curious, like with this whole, like the invitation and stuff, if the time will be taken to also showcase that with Ursulon, because he just arrived and they're outside still. So I guess I'm curious if Indri will have to invite him or Ame will have to make it known that he's part of the retinue as well, or if that'll be just kind of like glossed over.
It's a good point. Yeah. I mean, they're outside, but they're like within the domain. So yeah, I don't know. I think, well, I don't know, actually. We'll see. So that's a good point though.
We shall
See.
How fast does Hollimon fly? Like, is there,
yeah, I mean,
I'm curious if there's like a magic to it. Like, is he literally traversing that physical distance on horseback, or is there some sort of like, in the same way he traveled to Akom in that glade with Orima, is there some sort of like weird ley line travel or something?
Yeah. Can we get like an item on a character sheet for Hollimon? Like,
yeah.
Can we see this golden bridle? Like, yeah. I mean, the dude. So he was brought to Akom in this glade. First of all, just by being in the jungle. So that's interesting. And then secondly, then traveling to the North Pole. Yeah, this is crazy. So I'm also very curious to know like the mechanics of that.
Yeah.
It's definitely too early in a campaign for them to just to have like fast travel, like teleportation.
Yeah.
I feel like it is, but maybe not.
No, I agree. And again, like, I don't think they could all three use him. So I think it'll be very like situational at best. But I also honestly expect him to leave, and then just like maybe Ursulon can attempt to call him back sometimes.
Yeah. Right. Yep.
But yeah, I'm just looking through my notes here.
Yeah, same.
The the statues very much reminded me of Nanamori, her garden.
Yeah.
So,
And
so I liked
only
that.
and only go to, for me, reaffirm the suspicions about injury. You know,
Yeah.
so injury, and also I already brought this up, but the witch from I almost said the Wizard, the Witch, and the Wild One, Chronicles of Narnia. Very I never read the book, but I remember seeing the first movie.
Yeah.
Very similar vibe.
Yeah.
There.
I can see that. Yeah.
So anyway,
For sure.
Anything else?
I
think I got everything on my list.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay. Well, you guys let us know what you thought about the episode, and new one drops tomorrow, which is kind of nice. And then we have Critical Role, our discussion on that coming soon, Watch Party Thursday, and then our stream on Friday. So,
Death right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you soon. Bye, y'all.